And one way of recording stories, another way is by using wampum. Now wampum, you've probably heard of that, and one of the misconceptions is that wampum was money. And wampum is actually made from a quahog shell. And the shells are on the Atlantic coast. And the native people that lived out in Long Island all the way up to Massachusetts and to Maine, they were the wampum makers. We didn't have currency. We didn't have money. It didn't exist. We also didn't have poverty. Theft didn't exist. We didn't have jails. There was a high amount of respect for an individual's property. It's recorded in our Constitution, never to steal. And so like I said, if it's in your mind, you're more apt to follow it. But wampum was traded because one bead would take several hours to make one bead. And so if you have a handful of beads, knowing that it takes a long time to make it, when you barter and you trade with an individual, you have equal value back. And so when the Europeans arrived, it was the Dutch that first saw the value of wampum. And their interest was the beaver pelt, because the commodity of that day was over in Europe. Everybody had to have a felt hat. And the best material is the beaver pelt. And so it was a business. And one way to get business with the native people, being that they didn't have money and you couldn't buy it, they started to make wampum beads, knowing that you could trade for beaver pelts. And so in a sense, that became money. But among our people and a lot of native people in the Northeast, you would take the wampum beads and put it on a loom and you'd string it together in different designs, different patterns. And each one contains a story. So a storyteller could look at this wampum belt and recite the story behind it. And this one, just very quickly, this represents a series of treaties that were made between the Haudenosaunee, and it was originally the Dutch, later the English, the French, and the Americans. And it's a very simple concept. And one of them, that represents the Dutch or the English in their ship. And in their ship is all of their beliefs, their religion, their government. Everything about them is contained within that ship. And that ship is sailing down a river of life. Next to it is the Haudenosaunee, or the Iroquois, in our canoe. And contained within our canoe is our language, our beliefs, our system, our society is contained within that canoe. Going down that same river of life. But you notice those two never cross each other's trail. They never try to steer the other boat. And between them, the white represents peace and friendship. And so this was a powerful symbol. It's simple, but it's powerful in the idea that we respect each other. And this was a series of treaties. And so if an Iroquois person would see this, right away they know what it means. And they would think about it. And that was one way to record. Now another way is using what they call pictographs. Now this is a way of writing that most cultures all around the world at some point in their history use as a way to record stories. It's not hieroglyphics, it's not really a kind of writing. Each image just simply acts as a note or a reminder to the storyteller of the story. I could probably tell this story without even looking at it because I told it so many times. But I always refer back just to make sure I'm not forgetting certain parts. Now this piece of beadwork my grandfather made probably back in the 50s. And he was a prolific beader. If you ever get a chance to visit our museum in Achayota, in the second room it is loaded with beadwork. And there's one piece of beadwork that records that story I was talking about that has our Constitution that's 75 feet long. And it goes all the way around that room. And that's that long story. And there's another piece of beadwork that's on a blanket that goes about 7 feet tall. And it's just all beads. It's heavy. So those are the long stories. But this one isn't so long. Don't worry. But this, I'll just start the story. And this tells me, this first figure, that it's an Iroquois story. And I can tell by his headdress on his head. And it's called a gastoe. Now a gastoe is an Iroquois style of a headdress And and one of the misconceptions is that we all wore that big feathered bonnet that you see on the John Wayne movie. And those people, they live out in the Great Plains. And our hats are very different. And they're like bunches of feathers. I should have brought one. But they're split feathers that curl and twist. And you can tell what nation they belong to by the number of eagle feathers on the top. Mohawks always wear 3 upright eagle feathers, as opposed to the Senecas out in western New York State, they wear 1. And so if you're at a gathering and we're all wearing our traditional outfits, you can tell what nation they belong to just by looking at the feathers on the hat. And if you see deer antlers on the Gustoa, that means that man's a chief and a leader. And our leaders, and there's 50 of them all together among the 6 nations, they're not elected like the American system of government. Instead, the women put them into power. The women nominate a man to be a chief, a leader. Imagine if the United States was run that way. This would be a whole different country. You know, there'd be less war, I guarantee it. But our chiefs are nominated by the women to be our leaders. And it's a simple reason, is that the grandmothers, they watch these young men growing up. They watch them close, and they watch their qualities. And if there's a young man that all he thinks about is money and how much he can get, and that's all he thinks about. When he's a man, if he's thinking that same way, of course she's not going to ask him to represent her in her family. Another young man growing up, generous, he's helping, he's intelligent, he gives, he helps his elders, he's knowledgeable. She might consider him to be a leader. And all the women have to agree that he would be a good candidate. And if he's chosen, they put the deer antlers on his Gustoa. For the rest of his life, he's a chief. Unless he starts to go a different path that goes contrary to what his family, his nation, and his confederacy wish. If he just starts to drift away, that woman, that clan mother, will warn him that he's not doing his job. 3 times she warns him. And if he doesn't come back, she removes those deer antlers from his Gustoa. In other words, he's impeached. And she'll put somebody in there that will do his job. There's 50 of those men among the 6 nations. And that is very much a democracy. Everybody has a voice. But back to the story. So this tells me, this is an Iroquois story that's told to children. And the reason that a lot of these stories are told to children is a way, almost like punishment. It's a part of our religion, our spiritual beliefs, is we're forbidden ever to strike a child. It's against the law. But we have our own way of punishing children when they do something wrong. And I'll explain it briefly. We'll say, as an example, there's a little boy. And maybe that little boy is rude to his grandfather. Now, like I mentioned before, you're supposed to respect all your elders. So if that little boy was rude to his own grandfather, something was wrong. His first step in his punishment is he wasn't yelled at, and he definitely wasn't hit. Instead, he's told a story like the one I'm about to tell you. And contained within that story is a lesson why you should respect your elders. And usually that's enough, and that young person, that young boy will understand, and he'll respect his own grandfather. Or maybe he didn't understand it, or maybe he forgot. And when that little boy is rude to his grandfather again, this time it's his mother. She'll take water, ice cold water, and she'll put it in her mouth. And when that little boy is rude to that old man, she turns to him, grabs him, goes, spits it right in his face. Now, if you're around your brothers and sisters and friends, that's embarrassing. Take it from me. So you get that water in your face, and you're like, why did you do that? And the mother's going to explain. You were rude to your grandfather, and you shouldn't do that. You got to respect your grandfather and all elders. Usually that's enough. That kid will wake up a little bit. But some kids, it might take a little more. The next step is when he's rude to that old man, the mother grabs him by the scruff, drags him down to the lake or down to the river. If there's no lake or river, she'll get a bucket of water, and she'll dunk him head first right into that water. Now, he's not held there. It's real quick. Sploosh. Or sometimes they throw him right in the lake. Now, this time you're all wet, and it's, why'd you do that? The mother's going to explain. You're rude to your grandfather. That's not right. You shouldn't do that. Usually that's enough. But some kids, it takes a little more. The final step, and this is about 98, 99% effective, this works, When that little boy is rude to his grandfather, this time his whole family's involved. It's almost like he disappears. He doesn't exist. That little boy goes up to his mother, starts talking to her, goes, what's for supper? She'll turn her back, won't answer, walk away. That little boy goes up to his father. What's going on? How come Mom won't talk to me? He'll look right through him. He's not there. He'll turn his back. He'll walk away. You go to his brothers, his family. They don't look at him. They turn their heads. The grandfather is not there. Comes time for candy, for ice cream. He's got to get his own. He doesn't get any. Comes time for supper. Everybody has a plate in front of them. Not him. He's got to get his own. Try that for one day. That is very effective. Again, take it from me. That's how I was raised. I got that water treatment quite a few times. And the first step is the story. And so that must be why I know a lot of stories. Must have been a bad kid. But the story begins here. And you see the shape, that yellow and those dots. And what that represents is a handful of sand. Now if you were to go outside the beach or just on the ground and scoop up some sand, if you were to count every little grain, that'd be a lot. So that means a lot or many. Next to it, you see the sky dome going above. And falling from the sky is the rain and the grass is growing. That represents summer. That arrow represents time and distance. When you shoot an arrow, it takes time to travel. So if you piece these together, this means many summers ago in the past, that arrow going way back is when the story takes place. A long time ago, there was an Iroquois village. You can keep coming. One day, there was an old man, and he came wandering into that village. Now that old man was in a bad way. His face was dirty. His clothes were all shabby and ragged. Even his toes were sticking out of his moccasins. He was leaning on a cane, and if you see where his stomach is, it's empty. He was very hungry. He had been traveling for quite some time. So he came to that village to look for a family to take him in, give him shelter, give him something to eat. So he came to a door, a longhouse, and on the door, above the door, he saw the shell of the turtle. So he then knew that the people that lived in that house belonged to the Turtle clan. Now, a little bit about clans is that you get your clan through your mother. We're a matrilineal society. And my father's a Turtle clan, but my mother's a Wolf clan. So me and my brothers are automatically Wolf clan. And a clan is like your extended family. But our clans go a little bit further in that, because I'm a Wolf clan, if I knew somebody among the Senecas that was also a Wolf clan, even though I never met them, but I know they're Wolf, I call them cousin or brother. That's what made us strong, is that we saw that we were related and we took care of each other. But it went according to clan. In the homes, we're the same way. So that old man, he knocked on the door. The head of the house came out. And if you see, the head of the house is wearing a dress. Among our people, the women owned the home and everything in it. Because it was matrilineal, they have a family. We'll say that Turtle clan woman had a daughter and a son. And they both are Turtle clan like her. The son, when he would get married, he'd have to marry a different clan. And he would move out and move in with his new wife in her clan, and they'd start their family over there. The daughter, when she was ready to get married, the new husband would move in with her and her mother, and they'd add on a longhouse, or add on an apartment. And they'd have their children, again, would belong to the Turtle clan. And it was matrilineal. And so if you have a mother that has 15 daughters, and they all get married, that's 15 apartments you got to add on. So that's why they call it longhouses. They were very long. There was evidence of a longhouse at Onondaga near Syracuse that was 400 feet long and about 60 feet wide. These were huge places. And they were about 20 feet tall. In the event of a divorce, a split, which was kind of rare because they had trial marriages. But if there was ever, for some reason, a divorce, a split, the husband would leave and go back to his mother. And the saying goes, with the shirt on his back, no questions. And that's just, that's the way it is today as well. And there was a family, they got married the traditional fashion in the longhouse, the ceremony, according to this way. They were married for about 15 years, and he built a really nice house. And they had a family, a couple kids. But he decided to leave, to get a divorce for whatever reason. But he wanted that house. But he couldn't, because according to our Constitution, it's there, that's hers. And so he had to leave. He wasn't too happy, but there was no lawyers involved, nothing. And that's just the old traditional way. Well, back to the story. That old man, he asked that Turtle Clan woman for something to eat. But for some reason, that Turtle Clan woman was selfish. She pointed down the trail. She says, "Go on your way, old man. We just have enough to feed our own." She was very selfish. So that old man, what could he do but continue on? And he came to another bark house, and up above the doorway, he saw the carving of the snipe. The snipe is that small bird. He's got a long beak. The whis, that's his Mohawk name. He came to the house, knocked on the door. Again, the head of the house came forward, and he asked for some food. But like that Turtle Clan woman, that Snipe Clan woman was selfish. She pointed down the trail, and she was kind of rude. She goes, "I don't know who you are. Keep on moving, because we don't have anything to spare." She was very selfish. And so that old man, he continued on. He visited the houses of the wolf, the eel, the beaver, the hawk, the blue heron, and the deer. They all turned him away. They all pointed down the trail. Not one of them welcomed him in and gave him something to eat. They were all very selfish. And that old man was just getting ready to enter the forest to find another village when he noticed on the hill a small bark house. And as he got closer, he noticed above the doorway was the carving of a bear. So he knew that Bear Clan lived in that house. And as he got closer, it just so happened that that Bear Clan woman came out the door, and he got closer, and she took one look at him, and he didn't even have to say a word. And she looked at him, and she said, "Grandfather, come on in. You look very tired. Are you hungry?" And she got some warm food for him. And as he was eating, she looked at his clothes, that they were all shabby and ragged. And she sat right to work to make him a new outfit, a new shirt, new leggings, new moccasins. And she said, "Lay down and rest. Stay a while. You look very tired." And she got warm robes and covered him up. And he went to sleep. And when he woke up, he told her, or she told him, "You stay as long as you want. You honor us by being a guest in our home." So in a sense, it's like she adopted him, like another grandfather. And so that old man stayed there for quite a long time, and he was very happy. New clothing, he was well fed, well rested. He was getting healthy, till finally one day, that old man, he got very, very sick. He could barely eat any food, and he was very hot to the touch. And when that happened, he told that woman, he says, "Daughter, go into the forest." And he told her where to go. "You'll find a certain kind of plant growing there. I want you to bring me that plant." She was curious why he wanted that plant, but because she respected him, she went into the forest, and to her amazement, there was that plant, exactly as he described it and right where he said it would be. There it was. And so she took that plant, took it out of the ground, and gave it tobacco as an offering of thanksgiving. Now, the Haudenosaunee and the Iroquois people, and pretty much all Native Americans, we don't take anything out of the forest without a little bit of consideration, a little bit of thought, a little bit of gratitude. Hunting is not a sport for us. You do so out of remorse. You have to kill this creature to feed your family. And the same goes true with the trees, the plants. You don't just indiscriminately cut or harm these things. If you do, you only do as minimal as you can, and you give it something in return. And you explain to that spirit why you had to destroy it. So she gave that plant tobacco as an offering of thanksgiving. And she brought that plant back to that old man, and she watched as he took that plant and he put it into a clay pot, and he put some water in it with that plant and put it over the fire. And he talked, and he told her, he said, "Remember these things that I'm teaching you." And she watched as that water started to boil for a certain amount of time. He took that water off the fire, let it cool down. He drank that liquid. And when that liquid went into his body, to her amazement, that sickness that he had disappeared. It was a medicine. It wasn't known in that ancient day that you could cure that illness with this particular medicine. But now she knew. So time goes on. During that time, that old man got sick several different times. Each one was different. Every time he got sick, he told her to go into the forest to gather a different plant. And every time she brought that plant back to him, he taught her how to turn that plant into a medicine. And every time he took that medicine into his body, he was cured. Until finally, that old man had gotten every single sickness that was known in that ancient day. Every sickness that was known, he got it. But he taught her how to turn a plant into a medicine to cure that illness. There was nothing left. When that happened, she was returning to her home one day. She noticed a strange light coming out of her doorway. And as she got closer, she saw standing in the doorway a tall, handsome young man. He was dressed in white buckskin. He had porcupine quill embroidery, all colors of the rainbow, and his face was glowing like the sun. She knew that he was a spirit. She knelt down in fear. She hid away her face, and that young man walked up to her, and he lifted her up, and he spoke. And he said, "Do not fear me, my daughter. I am Kanietakeron, your creator. And I came down to this earth in the form of that sick old man to see if my people would remember my teachings, to be kind to old people, and to be hospitable to strangers. I visited all the clans in this village. They all turned me away. Only you of the Bear clan, you fed me, you sheltered me, you made me feel a part of your home. Many times I got sick, and every time I taught you how to turn a plant into a medicine, and every time I took that medicine into my body, I was cured from that illness. Now your reward for this kind woman of the Bear clan is this. From this time forward, you and your descendants, you and your family will be a prominent clan among all the Confederacy. In that you'll be known as the medicine people. You'll have the knowledge of the bark, the roots, the plants, the herbs that cure illness. You'll have that knowledge, and you'll pass it to your family. You'll be known as a medicine clan. And when he was finished speaking, there was a blinding flash of lightning, rumble of thunder. Mist filled that lodge, and when that mist rose up into the sky, Kanietakeron was gone. Now from that time to this very day, the Bear clan are known as a medicine clan. And I carry this with me all the time. You can't really see it good. It's a little root, and it's a sweet flag. In Mohawk, they call it ananolo. And ananolo grows in a wetland where it's like a tall grass, and this is the root of it. And what it's good for is people who talk a lot, like myself. You know, it's good for the throat. You just chew it, and it's really bitter. And you chew it, and you don't eat it. You just almost like keep it in your cheek, and you chew, and it helps clear that throat. And if you're catching a cold, you know that feeling, you get that scratch. You take a jackknife, and you scrape it little pieces, and you boil it. Sometimes it takes a lot, and you make a tea, about a gallon. You have to drink all of it, and it's very bitter. It doesn't taste good. But if you've caught it in time, you can hold back that cold. And you ever get congested up here where it's just, you get headaches and sinus? I've never done this, but this is what they do. They take a jackknife and they shave it into a powder. And you take it in your nose and you sniff it and you start sneezing like crazy. And that clears that all up. So I haven't tried that yet. I'm a little nervous. But I carry this around with me all the time. And a lot of our singers, they go to different ceremonial songs. And, you know, it's a lot on your throat, on your voice. And our people were great orators. They're always talking. And so they always have this. That's the end of that story. And the obvious lesson is, anybody know? Any young people know? No? What's the lesson to that story? Anybody know?
Take care of your elders.
That's one of them. You know over there? Did you raise your hand? Yeah. What's that? Yeah, that's a good trait, I guess. But it's respect your elders, and there's another one.
Be kind to strangers.
That's it. Be hospitable to strangers. Be kind to strangers. It's a little hard these days, but it's, of course, in the old days, it was anybody in need, everybody came together, and, you know, even if they're strangers or not. But this is told to a young person that doesn't show those qualities. And that's the end of that story.